Preparing to sharpen. First, you must familiarize yourself with the instrument shape and design. You really need to know the original design of the instrument before sharpening, otherwise you cannot be sure you will maintain the integrity of the instrument as you sharpen. If you are unsure, always have a new instrument to compare your instrument to, as you can see in this slide. We will be teaching you to sharpen the lateral surface of the instrument, not the face, to get the cutting edge sharp. This will narrow the face of the blade from lateral surface to lateral surface, causing the instrument to become thinner. Once too much metal has been sharpened away, the instrument must be discarded as depicted in the illustration on the right. Remember, with the Gracey Curettes, you only sharpen one cutting edge on each end. Let's get started with the sharpening technique. When sharpening the lateral surface, the angle of the stone to the face of the instrument is 110 degrees. The Gracey Curette has only one cutting edge and only one lateral surface is sharpened. Often, hygienists develop poor habits and don't realize they are not sharpening at 110 degrees. In an effort to resolve this issue, DH Cubed has created the 110 device. A device for students and practicing hygienists to use in order to develop the ability to maintain the proper 110 degree angle at all times. The 110 device sets your 110 degree angle for you. When the lights are on, you are at 110 degrees. If they blink on and off or turn off while using it, you are not at 110 degrees. Therefore, your goal is to keep the lights lit up and on while sharpening. We recommend holding the instrument in your non-dominant hand with the toe of the instrument pointing towards your body. Look at how the hygienist is holding the instrument and where each finger is placed for a solid grasp and neutral wrist. The thumb is placed firmly against the handle in order to stabilize any possible movement during the sharpening process. You want to be sure the instrument doesn't wobble or shift while applying pressure during the sharpening process. When the instrument is not held correctly or firmly enough, it can shift, potentially causing bevels to form on the lateral surface. In order to prevent this, stabilize the instrument in your hand firmly enough so that the instrument will not shift due to the pressure of sharpening. Anchor your elbows against your body for stability. If seated, we do not recommend stabilizing your instrument on a countertop because it can make your wrist come out of the neutral position, potentially causing strain. Be sure to keep your wrists as neutral as possible to prevent strain or wrist injury. As you can see, both wrists are neutral. You can stand to stabilize your instrument on the countertop. This allows your wrist to be more neutral, although you will be bending over. Just use the position that supports you the best. Shown here is a wrist out of the neutral position. There is always one side of each instrument where the wrist is awkward and not neutral. One way you can get the wrist to be more neutral is to shift your grasp on the instrument so it is higher on the handle, closer to the shank. Before you start sharpening the Gracey, you must first determine where the cutting edge is. To do this, hold the Gracey with the terminal shank perpendicular to the floor. The edge you will sharpen will be lower and closer to the floor. You will be sharpening the Gracey in increments of 2 to 3 millimeters. There are 3 zones you'll be sharpening. Zone 1 is located the closest to the terminal shank. Zone 2 is the middle third, and Zone 3 is the toe 1/3. Don't begin sharpening yet, but let's first practice looking at the 3 zones. Once you have determined the end to sharpen, rotate your instrument so that the face in Zone 1 is parallel to the floor. You must be sure the face stays parallel to the floor at all times. Now, rotate the instrument so the face in Zone 2 is parallel to the floor. And now, rotate your instrument until the face in Zone 3 is parallel to the floor. Once you have adhered the 110 to the stone, turn it on by shaking it. The lights will blink on to indicate it is ready to go. Start with your stone at a 90-degree angle to the floor. Tilt it until the lights turn on, indicating you are at 110 degrees. For Zone 1, start with the face being parallel to the floor. Begin by placing the stone on 2 to 3 millimeters in Zone 1 at the terminal shank. Sharpen only 2 to 3 millimeters in each zone. This is especially important with the Gracey, or else the shape can become deformed. In order to sharpen only 2 to 3 millimeters of the instrument at a time, you will only have 2 to 3 millimeters of the stone adapted to the instrument. As you can see, the arrow is pointing to where there is a gap between the stone and the instrument where you are not sharpening. Do not place the stone along the entire length of the blade from the terminal shank to the toe. This will wipe out Zone 2 and cause the instrument to become pointed and no longer function as a Gracey. Begin sharpening the first 2 to 3 millimeter increments in Zone 1 before advancing to Zone 2. Move the stone up and down in short, controlled strokes. The 110 will not work well when using long sharpening strokes. Therefore, be sure your strokes are short. Watch the 110 lights to be sure you are staying at the 110 degree angle. Eventually, you'll be able to see the lights out of your peripheral vision and will only have to concentrate on keeping the face parallel to the floor. Sharpen until dust appears on the face of the instrument. Do not advance to Zone 2 until the dust has appeared. Dust is the indication of eliminating bevels and a dull, rounded cutting edge. Essentially, what's happening is the instrument is now so sharp it is removing the surface of the stone. Once you have dust on the face of the instrument, before you move to Zone 2, adjust the instrument so the face is now parallel to the floor in Zone 2. Once the face is parallel, you can advance your stone to the next 2 to 3 millimeters into Zone 2. Sharpen this section until dust appears on the face. Next, adjust the face so it is parallel to the floor in Zone 3. Then begin to sharpen this section until dust appears. When moving the stone towards the toe in Zone 3, ensure the 110 degree angle is maintained and you don't begin to rotate the stone inward. Do not turn the stone inward at the toe when sharpening Zone 3. This will cause Zone 3 to become pointed, resulting in the loss of the functionality of the Gracey and the potential of breaking off while treating a patient. Therefore, you want to maintain a straight path along Zone 3. See how the hygienist does not turn the stone inward at the toe? There are two ways the instrument can become pointed. One is when the entire stone is applied to the lateral surface, rather than sharpening only in 2 to 3 millimeter increments at one time. And two, if you turn the stone inward as you approach the toe. The toe should only be sharpened when it needs reshaping. This will be addressed in the DHQ module on recontouring and sharpening the toe. The instrument on the far left needs to be discarded. The toe has been sharpened into a point. This has weakened the tip and it could break off during use, or it can gouge the root during scaling. This has been caused by turning the stone inward at the toe during sharpening. The instrument on the middle left, Zone 2, has been sharpened away. This weakens the instrument, which could lead to it breaking off during use. This is caused by applying too much of the stone to the instrument during sharpening. More than 2 to 3 millimeters of the stone was being applied to the instrument at one time. The instrument on the middle right has an irregular shape in Zone 3. This is caused by over-sharpening this section. If this continues as the instrument gets sharpened more, the shape will change significantly. This can affect how the instrument needs to be adapted in order to be effective when scaling. The instrument on the far right is new and not used. Looking closely, the toe isn't completely rounded. So even new instruments aren't always perfectly shaped. This is important to realize. You should always assess new instruments before using them. The 110 helps to maintain the stone angle, helping to keep the original shape intact. When using the 110 and the principles learned in this module, you should expect to create a surgically sharp cutting edge. As an example, the instrument on the left is dull and has many bevels. The one on the right is the same instrument sharpened by the 110. As you can see, there is a very sharp cutting edge and there are no bevels on the lateral surface. Now, to sharpen the opposite end, flip the instrument and repeat the process. Determine where the lower cutting edge is before you begin sharpening. Do this by holding the terminal shank perpendicular to the floor and identifying the lower cutting edge. Then, rotate your instrument so that the face in Zone 1 is parallel to the floor. Flip the stone so the 110 is now on the opposite side of your instrument and is facing away from your palm. Now, starting at the terminal shank, place the stone on the first 2 to 3 millimeters in Zone 1. Begin sharpening in 2 to 3 millimeter increments, staying in Zone 1 before advancing to the next zone until the dust appears. Please pause this video and take a few moments to sharpen an instrument. You can proceed when ready.